From Kern Government Television, welcome to this week's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting, originating from the County Administrative Center located at 1115 Truxtun Avenue, Bakersfield, California. Kern County's vision is to create and maintain a customer-centered county government designed to garner the confidence, support, and trust of the people we serve. Today's Kern County Board of Supervisors meeting will convene momentarily.
Good morning. Welcome to the Tuesday, August 21 meeting of the Kern County Board of Supervisors. The board will reconvene. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Gleason.
Here.
Supervisor Scrivener.
Here.
Supervisor Maggard.
Here.
Supervisor Couch. Supervisor Perez.
Here.
We're going to begin our morning with a salute to the flag. It's going to be led this morning by Bishop James Scraps Francisco. It's his nickname, and he's from the Way Ministry. And then after he has finished leading us in the flag salute, please remain standing for a moment of prayer, silence, or meditation. Pastor, you do it from the other side.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Please have a seat. I think that's the best recitation of the flag salute from the crowd we've had in my experiences here, so thank you all for your vigor in that. We're going to begin our morning by looking at our consent agenda. Consent items are indicated on our agendas with a CA above the item number. They are they tend to be are designated by staff to be routine in nature and usually non-controversial, so therefore we typically vote on them all at once. In this instance, today, however, we're going to, I'm going to go through what those items are. If you have a question about any item on consent, I'll give you an opportunity in a moment to express your concern or ask your question, and then it'll be up to a board member as to whether or not they pull the item from the consent calendar. So beginning on page 2 of this morning's agenda, items number 1, 3, 4, and 7 are on consent. On page 3, all the items 8 through 15 are on consent. On page 4, items 16 through 24. On page 5, items 25 through 28, and then 30 through 32. And on page 6, all the items 33 through 40. Are there any members of the public that have a question about any item that is on consent? I couldn't see your hand there. Please come forward. Can you give us your name for the record and tell us what your item you're questioning?
Of course. Good morning. My name is Shauna Day. I'm the Regional Vice President for the Central Valley and the Central Coast for the Hospital Council. I respectfully request agenda item 39 be removed from the consent agenda today. I'm here on behalf of the Kern County hospitals. We have concerns with the proposed Public Health Department's EMS designation fee. I urge the board to direct the auditor and controller to first conduct a study to determine whether the fees are warranted. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So you would like to discuss further than you just did, item number 39?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much. We'll see in a minute if anybody pulls that. Anybody else have a question about an item on consent this morning? I don't see any other hands. Do you? Are there any other hands out there? Okay, very good. Okay, we return to the board then. Board members, what is your pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
I'm going to recuse myself on item number 32. It has to do with a stroke designation, stroke center designation for Adventist Health. My wife works for Adventist Health, and so out of an abundance of caution for a source of income, I'm going to recuse myself from that item.
Very good, thank you. Any other members have anything to say, or are you ready to vote on consent?
Would you like to pull item 32 for separate consideration? Is that what you were going to do?
I'm sorry, I overlooked your...
No, I didn't just punched in, Chairman, thank you. But Supervisor Couch, do you have a solution for that request?
I was just going to, since they asked to have it be pulled for separate consideration, I was going to do that so that public health staff could address it.
Okay.
Okay. We'll pull item number 39 then, and that will be considered in sequence when we get to that point.
Thank you.
Let me make sure I make a note about that. Okay. Excuse me. Is there a motion then on the remainder of the consent calendar?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. This morning, item number 2 is a proclamation declaring September 2018 as Disaster Preparedness Month in Kern County, and that proclamation will be presented by Supervisor Gleason.
Motion on proclamation.
Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure and honor to be down here to request and proclaim September 2018 as Disaster Preparedness Month. I have the proclamation in front of me. It reads, Board of Supervisors of the County of Kern, State of California, has officially proclaimed September 2018 as Disaster Preparedness Month in Kern County, and this recognition has been entered into the official board minutes signed by our Honorable Chairman, Mike Maggart. Kern County is no stranger to emergencies and disasters. California is no stranger to emergencies and disasters. We have Kern County employees, firemen, we have who are battling fires across the state. We have Sheriff's Department every day dealing with disasters in neighborhoods where they're managing and they would go out of control if it wasn't for their ability to keep things in control. Erskine fire, just absolutely homes level, 288 homes, people displaced. It goes on and on and on. We could be here all day. Suffice to say, we are plagued with disasters, and fortunately, we have the people we have working for us, and the chief is one of those. Chief, would you like to make a couple comments?
Yes, sir.
Thanks. That's for you.
Chairman Maggard, members of the board, and more importantly, the public. September's Disaster Preparedness Month, and as your fire chief and director of emergency services, we're going to take this month and we are going to bombard the public with disaster preparedness information. We have filmed 10 public service announcements that you will begin to see on TV, Facebook, Kern County government website, dealing with everything from overall disaster preparedness, a communication plan, home fire preparedness, evacuation, and of course, I cannot leave out Ready Kern, our telephone emergency notification system. We're going to do a series of web chats, hour-long web chats on Thursdays in September, where we're going to discuss all of the preparedness that people need to do to be ready. We're going to be at Cal State Bakersfield. We've partnered with them on September 14th and 15th to teach kids and families disaster preparedness information. And this isn't just the fire department. This is everybody. You're going to see in these commercials, these PSAs that we filmed, you're going to see a lot of Kern County department heads who are engaged in disaster preparedness because they're engaged in the response. One department not often thought about is Public Works. Director Craig Pope, he has all the roads that flood, so he talks about flooding in one of these PSAs. So we've covered the gamut of this. We want the people to tune in. Again, we're going to bombard them to make sure they're ready, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. So many disasters, obviously, fires, primarily the wildland fires, the floods, but also a major power outage could affect people for weeks on end. All of these disasters, people need to be ready, not just the wildland fires in the urban interface area, but right here in downtown Bakersfield. So your fire department, your county departments, we're out there. We're going to be engaged in the communities in the month of September. So should be a good month and a lot of education for our public. Thank you.
Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, the way it's listed is a presentation by the public about public comments, but I'm going to hold that item as I have begun recently doing till the end of this meeting. So we'll have public comments at the end of the meeting after we've dealt with the other regularly scheduled items. Number 6 is board member announcements or reports. Any members of the board have a comment or a report they'd like to give this morning?
Mr. Chairman.
Supervisor Gleason.
Thrilled to announce that this past weekend at the U.S. Amateur Open, Golf Open, held at Pebble Beach, where the top 2 finalists, amateurs in the nation, were going beak to beak to win the U.S. Amateur. This thing, Tiger Woods won twice, and
Jack Nicholas won. We had a gentleman by the name of Devin Bling from Ridgecrest, California. He lost, but he lost nobly. He lost 6-5 or something like that. But he was phenomenal, and he was a great golfer. He's a great kid, a great family, and he's from Ridgecrest, California. Thank you.
Very good. Congratulations, Dan. Our next item is number 29, which is a monthly status update on operational administrative analysis of the Kern County Fire Department. Chief Marshal, welcome.
Chairman Maggard, members of the board, this is the third update on the operational and administrative analysis of the Kern County Fire Department performed by the Center for Public Safety Management. There's 62 recommendations that we're working through as a result of this analysis. Your board directed the fire department to develop a following matrix. Again, the current recommendations we're working, the financial costs associated with all of these recommendations, the progress on the recommendations, and a timeline for completing the recommendations. Additionally, your board requested an introduction into what the fire department's going to be working on next. Recommendation number 5, this involves internet-based video conferencing system to facilitate regular meetings, training. Again, we have 47 fire stations plus our other facilities. It makes absolutely no sense to drive all over the county. Again, we cover over 8,000 square miles. So we're looking at a internet-based video conferencing system. Not sure what the costs are. We're looking into grant funding, possibly through Air Pollution Control District. We're also looking at if our internet system can handle the bandwidth to do this project. So staff is working on that. We've started this project. We'll be back before your board in October or early November to give you an update on the completion of this and how we can move forward. Recommendation number 8, this is regional centers or using private companies to deliver supplies to fire stations. Again, 47 fire stations. We have a warehouse that houses supplies, everything from keeping the fire station running, fire hose, everything that we need to do our job. What we're looking into is using private companies such as UPS or FedEx or the Postal Service to deliver equipment and supplies to our fire stations. We didn't really look at having regional centers due to the fact that we would have to buy more inventory and store it throughout the county, which would cost more money. But we believe we can have savings by having private companies deliver the supplies. So we're starting that. We're going to be doing an analysis using our fire stations in the Indian Wells Valley, the 2 stations in Ridgecrest, Inyo, Kern, and Randsburg, to see how we can do this and hopefully achieve some savings and efficiency. Recommendation number 9, 100% cost recovery on our hazardous materials program and seeking financial support with companies in Kern County that store, transport, or incorporate hazardous materials within their operations. Unknown revenue at this time, how we can do this. We've worked a little bit with public health on determining if they can bill through their program so the end user receives one bill, not multiple bills. We're reviewing costs associated with our hazmat program to establish a billing methodology. We'll have this recommendation finished up by the end of October and before your board. Recommendation number 12, an accounting of the costs associated with our wildland program and a separate accounting for all costs associated. The main thing with this is our accounts receivable. So there's no fiscal savings or revenue associated with this. This is strictly a tracking document. We have an accounts receivable tracking form to track all the revenue associated with our wildland program. As your board's familiar, late last fiscal year, we were having a cash flow problem due to delayed payments from the state and federal wildland agency. So we've created a tracking form, and this is just one section. We have all of the wildland agencies that we bill for our costs associated. This is CAL FIRE, so this is only one part of it. When we have a fire that's billable, we enter it, put the bill together, bill the agency, and when the money comes in, we're able to close that bill. So this has a complete tracking system, again, for all of the wildland fires that we bill for. And we can look at it, it's up to date. Our financial staff puts this together, and we do it on the fiscal year. So this item has been completed, and we're using that so we know exactly where we are. Recommendation number 16 is the Aircraft Rescue and Firefighting Program, Meadows Field and Inyo Kern Airport. The revenue estimate, if we build Meadows Field for our actual cost to staff our fire station, is $1.5 million. Inyo Kern Airport, we have completed that project. We have ceased providing ARF services, and the Indian Wells Airport District has taken over that on July 10th. So that is in place. We have a lease agreement where we're leasing the fire station that's on the Inyo Kern Airport property. So we've got that one done, and we're still working on the Meadows Field project, trying to figure out a way we can implement this. It'll probably be a phased-in project, but we're working on that. Again, Meadows Field, we started it. I do not have a completion date where we can get it finalized and an MOU in place. Inyo Kern, July 10th, we completed that, so we've crossed that one off the list. Recommendation number 20. This involves our fire station and the installation of automatic fire alarm systems. This is a hardwired smoke detector with heat, smoke, and carbon monoxide detection at all fire stations. So we went out and got quotes to do this, and let me take a step back. All of our fire stations do have battery-powered smoke detectors and carbon monoxide. This was a hardwired monitoring system. Basically, to do each fire station is about $8,300 and a $50 monitoring fee. So the total expenditure, just under $400,000 to install the hardware, and then $28,000 a year to do the monitoring. The plan is to incorporate this recommendation as we go forward into future capital maintenance request, and of course all new fire stations doing this type of project. So this one, we don't have the financial resources to do it, but we will again look into future ways of making this happen. So this recommendation's been completed. Recommendation 21 is a lot like the previous one, and that involves automatic fire sprinkler systems at our fire stations. We went out and got quotes of various fire stations, different years of construction, and the average cost is about $34,000 per fire station to install this. We have at least 29 fire stations that would need to have this, plus some other facilities. So this expenditure, if we were to do it, would be about $1 million. Again, we've got the quote. We're going to incorporate this into future capital maintenance requests. So this one, I believe, is completed, and we'll see when we have the financial resources if we can continue to or install, retrofit our fire stations. Recommendation number 22, the evaluation of our vehicle exhaust extraction systems. This is a system in the fire station that connects to a fire truck. So when it starts up, it automatically sucks the exhaust out of the engine house. The system was grant funded, but some of the stations have fallen in disrepair. So we're out there looking at the system. We have found a source of parts that are that we may be able to use. LA County Fire Department's upgraded their system, so we're going through and upgrading the ones that we can and doing repair. We believe we'll have a really good list by the end of September and be working on this to get this system in place. The new stations have a different type of exhaust system, and that one is working well. Recommendation number 34, this one's been brought before your board before, and this is a comprehensive strategic plan for the fire department. We're working on this. We've taken this on. We're going to be gathering internal and external input from our stakeholders, our firefighters, stakeholders in the community, and then doing a SWOT analysis as part of this to determine what our strengths, weaknesses, et cetera, are. So we're working on that. We should have this one done by the end of December and be bringing it to your board, which will be timely in the first part of next year as we do mid-year and recommended budget recommendations. Recommendation number 52, this is the implementation of an in-service fire company inspection fee. Staff's been working on this. The revenue estimate's over approximately $720,000 annually. We've completed the draft ordinance. We'll be scheduling community meetings in September and October to get public comment on this, and then be bringing to your board the 1st of November. So we'll have this one, and it'll be up, your board will have the information and to vote on it. Recommendation number 53, this is civilianization of fire prevention. We're working on this one. We have a draft organization chart. We'll be discussing it with the CAO's office when we do our fire budget meetings. But we can save some money there by civilianizing. And then the hiring, and we'll be able to cross this one off by the end of the calendar year. There were several recommendations regarding the MOU with the Kern County Firefighters Union. Those negotiations are ongoing. An additional item that was included, not part of the 62 recommendations, had to do with the adoption of a fire impact fee. We're working with the CAO's office, county council, and the auditor to determine if this is even possible. So that's under review. Could be an impact fee, the formation of a fire district. We're not sure what the final recommendation. We should have this finished up in the next few weeks and bring it before your board. I've included a tracking spreadsheet to monitor all the progress of the 62 recommendations. Again, we're starting to cross some off and adding more to the list as we work through that, so your board has the tracking recommendation. That'll keep us engaged and on schedule to complete this project. So the next items that we're adding to the list that we're working on, recommendation number 13, this was a lot like the tracking revenues for our wildland program. This involves tracking our contract city revenue. We bill typically on a quarterly payment. So we have a spreadsheet that we'll be using so we can stay on task and make sure our payments are being received in a timely fashion. The next item, it kind of goes along with our strategic plan, and it involves performance measures. Obviously, data analysis on what the fire department's doing how we're meeting response times. That's a huge one. We'll be developing new performance measures as part of our strategic plan. And we're going to take input, again, our internal stakeholders, our firefighters who are out there on the front lines every day, the community, obviously your board, our contract cities, and other county administrative offices. Recommendation number 39, this is fire accreditation. As you're probably aware, hospitals, schools undergo accreditation. We're working on this right now. There's 10 categories in this accreditation, and it's really a roadmap for the future, and it ties in with the strategic plan and the analysis. There's 10 categories that cover the gamut of the fire department, and as my peers have said, going through this process, make sure you are on the right track, doing the right thing, measuring up against other fire departments, and making sure you don't have any blind spots, something that you may be overlooking in your operation. So we're right in the middle of that. That's a fairly lengthy process. Our target is to get accredited sometime in 2020. And recommendation 49 involves a pre-alert dispatching process for priority calls. That's to get the fire units responding in, or giving them a heads up before the actual dispatch goes out. So we're looking at that. That'll improve response times, which tie into everything, whether it be a fire or an EMS call. So that concludes my third update of the operational analysis of the Kern County Fire Department, and I'm available for any questions your board may have.
Thank you, Chief. Colleagues, do you have any questions before I turn it to the public? Are there any members of the public that would like to make comment to us this morning regarding the report? Good morning. Please give us your name for the record and tell us what your concern is.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Dennis Fox. I've been here before.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fox, I couldn't understand you. Say that again, please.
Yeah, well, I'm on this item, and item 27 is coming in. I figured one thing I would like to, before I start, commend him on the proclamation. One of the things I know we should worry about, and that is power failure. Anything happens like the big one, we'll be without water. There will be water, but you won't be able to pump it. And the other thing has to do with the, we're not going to be able to have your medicine. You might be sitting at the pharmacy, but their computers won't work. So a little, up north they call it the stash. Keep about a 5-day supply of stuff. Anyway, on what I've been talking before is we've got over almost 3 million dead trees in this area. We have a high fuel load in our forests and our wildlands, and we're water short to feed those trees, so they get weak, then you get the beetles, then they die. And that is just a fire waiting to happen. 2 ways to handle it. We're with hand crews, your regular fire crews in the winter. And it's been nice to think about, hey, we'll have them do it in the winter, and that way we won't have to retrain them, and we can keep them all year. Trouble is, fire season is going year-round. It happened this year. The other one is, they have a small one, but is a masticator, either leased. It's a huge piece of equipment. And it goes in, snips the trees, chops them up into little pieces, and spreads it on the ground, which is a mulch to keep the water, as well as reduce the fuel load. But it's expensive to use, and it's probably the best to use. I would think a resolution would be in order to cooperate with the federal agencies, the BLM and the Forest Service, in this, because there's opposition. We have a lot of our environmental friends are not the sharpest knives in the drawer, and they think like wrestling interviews. World is, well, that's a good, that's a bad, oh, that's a pretty, that's a not pretty. And it's not a cause and effect. It's just, you know, people, different people. What I would think is going to look at, even think the climate and the air. But what happened in Redding is they had a fire a few years ago. The trees did not come back. We talk about global warming. What came back was not the trees, because it's getting to be more Mediterranean up there than it is a West Coast climate. What came back was brush, and brush burns about every 22 years, kind of like with the sunspot cycle. So I have nothing but would like to back the fire chief. I think he's been doing pretty good on this stuff, but it's going to be an interagency thing. And I think any support you can do, and maybe he can get it and lease it and get some backing from the feds and help them with their opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Have
Fox.
a good evening.
Thank you. Who would be next? Please come forward. Can you give us your name for the record, please?
Michael Bigley, Tehachapi. I just have one question. What exactly is the fire impact fee, and who's going to be paying this, and who's going to be impacted by it? Is this going to be paid by all the residents or people that have a fire and have to pay for service? And that would be directed to the chief over there.
We'll have the chief answer that question in a few minutes.
Okay.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to ask a question this morning? Make a comment about the fire report? Okay, I'm going to close the public comment period then and return to the chief. Chief, could you please answer Mr. Bigley's question regarding fire impact fee?
Yes, sir. Chairman Maggard, members of the board and the public, the fire impact fee could be a multitude of different facets. It could be on new construction where a fee is paid by a home builder to support fire department operations as new areas are developed. It could be a fee across the county unincorporated areas where it would be a flat fee to support fire department operations. So there's a lot of different types of fire impact fees. It does not involve a fee that if you have a fire, we're going to charge you unless there's negligence and a cost recovery situation. Fire districts are like school districts or mosquito abatement districts where people pay to have that service. Again, we're still in the research mode. No decision has been made on any fire impact fees. And your board and the public would be fully briefed on how the different types of fees would work when we complete our research. I'd also like to address Mr. Fox's comments. This morning, your board approved the fire department applying for 3 hazard mitigation grants. Included in it is a large part of our wildland-urban interface, the dead trees, developing community wildfire protection plans. So we're continuing to be engaged in the tree mortality across the county. It's becoming even more of a problem as we've seen on these fires. We've had a firefighter killed by a falling tree this year. And that could happen to the public. It doesn't need to be on fire. These trees that are dead, they've been dead for a long time, and they can unexpectedly fall. People out enjoying the wildland areas could be killed by, you know, this type of event, and we are on it. We're doing everything possible. Mr. Fox did make a good comment. We don't get a lot of work done during the summer because we're out there fighting fires, and it's truly a year-round project, but we're engaged in this.
Thank you, Chief, for your response. Any comments or questions by members of the board? Supervisor Scribner? Oh, you didn't. I'm sorry. I misunderstood.
I didn't punch in, but I will say, Chief, I want to, since you called on me.
Okay.
I will say, Chief, thank you for the thorough report. There's a lot of items on here that I'm very interested that we continue to pursue, and those are mainly areas in which we're going to see some cost savings, such as how we order our supplies, and also I'm extremely interested in us pursuing cost recovery, especially from our contract cities. There was an article that I saw in the news recently on one of our contract cities with their financial struggles, but we definitely need to make sure that we are treating everybody equally and everybody's on an equal playing field, and the cities that are contracting with us are paying the full bore of costs that it takes for us to provide that service. Some of those items that you talked about, such as the smoke alarms for a cost of $400,000 and sprinkler systems. I know, a lot of us, we have battery-powered carbon monoxide and smoke alarms in our homes. And so I realize that what you're doing there is you are just addressing one of the points in the study. But just so you know, my priorities are where we can save money rather than looking at new ways to spend money, particularly during this budget crisis. So thank you very much for your report.
Any other members of the board have a question or comment? Supervisor Couch.
Thank you. Chief, when you mentioned the, or maybe it was Mr. Fox, the need for clearing of the brush and taking out dead trees and all that, you just spoke to that. You would need to have agreements with the BLM and Forestry Service, or how, you can't just go off into their land and start working on it? What do you need to do that?
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, we're all working together. The Forest Service, they have hand crews, they're working on federal land. Our primary is working in CAL FIRE, the state responsibility area, but we're all working together. We're sharing resources, we're engaged. It's, the tree mortality, it doesn't know any boundaries. It's everywhere.
I'd like to talk, I'm sure they have to, it sounds easy to go in and do, but I'm sure they need a lot of training to go into the forest and do that type of work. So I'd like to talk to you about, not today, I don't want to take up time today, but I'd like to talk to you about what type of training is needed and where there might be a potential source of a labor pool.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Supervisor Gleason.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, Chief. Appreciate it. I got a couple of questions and concerns about this report. Mr. Alsop, what is the structural deficit that exists in the fire department today?
$7.5 million estimated.
What effect, and the purpose of one of the reasons of us doing this review and audit, not an audit, it was an assessment of the fire department, was to find ways to not only just have a better fire department, which we all want to have, but also find ways to target economies, to build efficiencies, and to reduce that structural deficit. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Chief, what have we done to date to reduce that $7.5 million deficit and by using this report?
The one item that's been completed is the Inyo Kern Airport, where we've been able to get that one crossed off the list, so we're saving money there.
Okay, good.
And the next big item will be our civilianization of fire prevention and the revenue associated with that. So we've completed the draft ordinance. We have to do community meetings, and we'll be bringing that back before your board. So those items should be crossed off just as soon as we can get the community meetings and finish this project. But I'm looking at the end of October to have these finished and before your board.
Thanks. I sat through this presentation, and I thought it was a good presentation. I appreciate it. I learned a lot, but it wasn't something that I was looking for. What I was looking for is that tracking spreadsheet you have there. That's what I would like to see. I would like to quantify the changes you are making in your fire department to achieve the desired objective of reducing or satisfying a structural deficit. So that numbers I want to quantify and see how you're progressing. I want to see a trend line, and I want to see that you are successful in moving your organization to a way that satisfies that financial requirement. What I saw today was some wonderful stuff that you're doing. I applaud. I'm all for. I saw a $466,000 reduction in the Inyo Kern Fire Department. I think that was correct. Then the next thing I saw was you were raising something by $390,000, I forget what it was, and another $986,000, and then you're going to put on a fee to people, and it's not what I'm looking for in this assessment. Those are all maybe valid points that deserve separate discussions, and you could win all those arguments, I don't know. But I'm interested in finding satisfaction in that structural deficit, and that's the purpose of it. If you could quantify this report next month saying, okay, this is what we did with item 5, and we achieved this much. And if the number's 0, then just leave a blank or something. I'll do a tracking spreadsheet just like you had. But I need to have more confidence that we're going in the right direction in order to achieve our desired financial objectives with the fire department, and I don't feel that from this presentation today. So maybe you could start off your presentation with, you know, I'm not telling you how to do your job, you do it, but I need to have confidence that the fire department is moving in the right direction, and I don't from this report. I mean, from a financial perspective. Thank you.
I'd like to follow up, Chief, with that. Spreadsheets are a very effective managerial tool, so I'd like to suggest a couple tweaks to the spreadsheet. Can you put a copy of the spreadsheet up? Chief, the spreadsheet, the 5th column of the spreadsheet says fiscal impact. We tracking? Hold on a second. She's telling you that she needs you to back up the PowerPoint. That's it, yeah. Hard to read for the public, but the 5th column, Chief, is fiscal impact, correct?
Correct, Supervisor Maggard.
So what I would suggest is that we expand the spreadsheet a little bit. It's going to make the font a little bit smaller, but expand it so that we have a column that reflects those that have been adopted, the fiscal impact of those items that have been adopted, and the fiscal impact of those items that are proposed but not yet adopted. And then at the bottom of the spreadsheet, total those so we can see how much have we realized so far in savings, and then how much is yet to go. How much have you recommended that we have not yet realized because the project isn't finished yet. There's a flip side. Some of the items on here also reflect expenditures. So you can do this at the bottom of the spreadsheet rather than in columns, because too many columns makes it hard to read. But at the bottom, I'd like you to begin with a little analysis that shows the structural deficit that we have, the savings that we've realized, that'll be the total of that one column from the items that are already implemented, then subtract from that the cost of those items that have already been implemented, that have a cost associated with them. Give us a number that'll show us where we've come so far in reducing the deficit, and then go towards those things that are yet to be realized, so we have a potential savings, and then at the bottom of that show us how far, if we realize all of your recommendations, how close we are to reducing that deficit in total. I think that'll help us get a lot closer to having a spreadsheet that reflects what Supervisor Gleason suggested and what I hope to see as well.
Yes, sir.
We can talk about that further. I know that's accounting language, and I am and you're not. So, you know, we can talk about that more if you'd like to.
Yes, sir.
We have a request to speak from the CEO's position.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would ask respectfully again for a collaborative effort between the fire chief and my office on these presentations prior to them being made. That is not the case today. I wasn't going to say anything, but in light of the comments, I'm going to. I think we could help the chief be successful in his efforts here. We need to find savings. We need to focus our efforts and prioritize our efforts on those things that find savings, you know, apart from fire sprinklers and systems and the like. So I would respectfully request that we collaboratively work on this presentation each month before it's given to you, well in advance of the day it is provided. If your board disagrees, I will kindly stand down.
Thank you. I would heartily support that. My understanding is that this report was given to the clerk yesterday. Very little time for the CEO's office or us to to reflect upon it before it came forward. So could you please work with them? We post a draft of the agenda the Wednesday before we meet. So tomorrow we will post a draft of the agenda for the next week's meeting. And it would be helpful, I think, if you could get something to the CEO's office by that date, and then you guys can hone it and move forward with that. Is that something you can work towards, Chief?
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much. Supervisor Gleason.
A quick question. When do you, give me a date, where we have to have this due on on whatever the next time we're meeting in. It's going to be September, late September sometime. What date do you need to start getting together? Or you guys can work that out?
Yeah, I think we can work it out.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, Supervisor, through the chair, I think what I'm saying is that I think we can be of assistance to the chief to ensure success here. That's all I'm saying, and we need more than a day's notice.
Okay, any other members of the board have a question or comment?
You need a motion on this, Mr. Chairman?
We need a motion to receive and file, and that would be appropriate.
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you very much. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief. Item number 39 was pulled from consent. It is by Supervisor Couch. It is this request that was referenced earlier by Ms. Shauna Day, to a request to set a public hearing to consider adoption of a new ordinance, a new uncodified ordinance relating to emergency medical service fees. Mr. Constantine, could you please come forward and Ms. Day already expressed her concern. Can you please give us your perspective on and what you recommend that we do?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As you are aware, this item before you is to set a public hearing in 4 weeks to discuss some proposed changes to the EMS fees. Knowing that this was a topic of interest, we went above and beyond, and actually in June I requested to be placed on the Hospital Council agenda. On August 2nd, I did present to the Council about proposed upcoming changes. We've had a couple letters and phone calls back and forth. We have an August 30th pending meeting again to discuss the proposed changes in further detail with the Hospital Council. And just very briefly, this proposal is to establish a fee so that public health can recoup the actual time that we spend to designate a hospital as a specialty care. It's at the hospital's recommendation. So if the hospital doesn't want the designation, then they would incur no cost and we would provide no service. So our request is to allow us to come back in 4 weeks on September 18th and have a full public discussion about the proposal.
Thank you. So, Mr. Constantine, during the interim between now and when it comes back to us, what is your plan as to how to engage the Hospital Council?
So Ms. Day has already reached out to us. We have a August 30th meeting that she has arranged, I believe, with representatives from all the hospitals to talk about it more in depth in advance of the September 18th meeting.
Okay. So do you recommend that we continue forward with the date you've suggested?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, any other?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Supervisor Scribner.
Mr. Constantine, could you come back, please? Thank you. I think the request specifically from Shauna Day, and I don't know if I'm going to get this exactly right, but it was a request that there was some analysis by the Auditor Controller in regards to this item. And I don't know that that is an appropriate step for us to take. I see you're shaking your head no. Mary Bedard, the Auditor Controller, is in the audience. I don't know if she has any comment, but perhaps you'd like to address that specific request.
Yes, sir. She has referenced a health and safety code. We also are required under county policy to ensure that we recoup the cost it takes to provide the service, not make more, not make less, and that is how we've addressed all of our health fees that we've established. I'm unfamiliar with the Auditor Controller providing a detailed analysis, but on the 18th, we will provide your board with a thorough analysis of how that fee was calculated to show that we're actually recouping just the cost to provide the service.
Very well. Thank you.
Okay, now that the item's been pulled, are there any other comments from the public about the item that you just feel free to come forward?
Thank you.
Can you please give us your name again?
My name is Shauna Day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Respectfully, the Hospital Council is requesting the Board of Supervisors to direct the Auditor and Controller to please conduct a fee study. The hospitals in Kern County have yet to receive information in writing or data on how the county, essentially, what is this county providing with this fee? What are the $25,000 per designation per fee? There are 33 LEMSAs throughout California, and there is a disparity among the fees. I have today with me a fee study prepared by Orange County's auditor and controller. And as you can see on the fee studies, many of the counties have no fees, but no county has any fees at $25,000 mark. So I could provide to your office, or?
Yeah, give it to the clerk. Thank you.
So I respectfully ask, and yes, we do have a meeting coming up August 30th, but we have not received the information detailing what the fees actually incur. So again, under the State Health and Safety Code 1797.212, the local EMS agency must only establish fees necessary to covering reasonable cost of administering these certificates. Should be strictly tied to the actual cost of the EMS business, staff level, and time expended. We have not seen this. So I request to postpone the public hearing September 18th until we receive this information where we can collaboratively work together on next steps with the fee. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public that would like to make comment about this morning? Supervisor Perez would like to comment.
Thank you, Chairman. Unless I'm missing something, it appears as though Mr. Constantine is moving full steam ahead in providing due process to you, ma'am, and to the subject matter on the whole. And I fully expect the matter to be fleshed out. So without more, and you make a compelling case, and I think you need to be heard and present your position. But without more, it seems to me we're moving procedurally right where we need to address your issue. And this is the advice from our, expert. So I'm inclined to not take action on this unless I hear from my colleagues or find some other compelling reason to stop the process that we know. It's just unlikely at this stage to disrupt that. We're moving in that direction to have that presentation be heard, and I absolutely agree with you. You deserve all the information you're asking. It needs to be done. But that's my position now, and of course I can be convinced otherwise, but I'd like to hear from my colleagues.
Thank you. We've already heard from you, so we'll let the board discuss it. Any other members of the board? I'm not trying to reword what you said, but was your inclination then to proceed with staff's recommendation and let the information be forthcoming during the process?
Sure, 1 of 5 opinions,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I understood your words. Supervisor Gleason.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Constantine, what I think I'm hearing, the way I'm understanding this processing in my brain, is that you want to go forth with a system of charging fees for expenditures you make, for services you provide. You want to provide the service, and you want to get paid exactly for the cost of providing that service.
Yes, sir, that is the proposal.
And I'm hearing the other person say that doesn't necessarily have a problem with that. They just want to understand what those fees are before we agree to paying these costs.
I don't know.
Because they in their business plan, well, could I ask that young lady again to get back up here so I understand?
Day.
Miss what?
Day.
Miss Day.
Supervisor Gleason, you are correct.
Well, you just want to know what the services are.
Yes.
So, and the purpose of that is you can say, well, I can do this one cheaper than you, so I'm going to go there. So this is the service I want you to do, and you want to work out a business plan to pay for services that you receive. Under
the Safety Code 1719.7212, the agency may only establish fees necessary to cover reasonable costs of administrating the certificate. That's what we need to know. We need to know the cost. What are they covering? So before we move forward with the September 18th meeting, please postpone it so we can meet together on August 30th and to discuss so we can see the data. Again, if you look at the fees up there, they're all over the board throughout California. Why are we asking for $25,000 fees? What is it covering for the 5 designations? We have seen nothing in writing. It's only been verbal. So I'm asking for information, data, hence why it's best if the auditor or controller goes forward with the fee study. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Day. Matt, one last question. Could you respond to that? I think you're satisfying that need by having this hearing on September 18th, you're going to accommodate the August 30th requirement that she's asking for so that you can get together and full transparency, give all the information that's being requested.
You summarized it correctly. We're going to, in advance of that public hearing, we're going above and beyond, and we're going to have a separate meeting where we share all that information initially, and we'll do it again on the 18th for the public and for you to make that consideration. And we're aware of Ms. Day's concerns, and we agree with her. These fees need to cover just the cost of providing the service, and we will be able to show that to you.
Okay. I think I'm okay with all this.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the board that would like to comment regarding item number 39? Okay, then we've heard the request from Ms. Day. We've heard the recommendation from Mr. Constantine about setting the hearing date for September 18th, and in the interim, he will have discussions with them and provide the requested information.
Motion on staff's recommendation.
Thank you.
Second.
We have a motion and a second.
Could I comment on that?
Couch,
I just want to make the comment that just because we're setting a hearing date, we may not agree with what Mr. Constantine says. You make a very good case. So setting the date is not implementing the fee. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor. Please cast your votes.
The motion is approved. All ayes.
Thank you very much. Okay, now we're going to hear public comments. We offer an opportunity to the public every time we meet to come forward and share with us any questions or concerns that they might have about any item that is not otherwise on our agenda for that particular day. So we would love to hear from the public about any matters that have not otherwise appeared on our agenda today. Yes, sir. Can you please give us your name?
Yes, Tim Coffrin, President of Kern Law Enforcement Association, and good morning, Supervisors, through the chair.
Good morning.
Recently, Kaylee concluded a ratification vote for a proposed MOU. I was proud to see that 75% of our members participated in the vote. That's the highest participation rate that we've seen in any voting action within the association. As has been reported, a 95% majority of those voting voted to reject the offer brought before them. And I'm not aware of any contract offer being rejected by that percentage of our membership in the past. Before you today is a large representation of KLA members and concerned citizens. We are united, and we come here today to express our concerns. We're concerned about the level and quality of public safety services being delivered to the communities of Kern County, and I'm confident that you'll hear several speakers today that the current course of priority is inadequate for the needs of the Sheriff's Office and the community. Due to lack of maintaining the compensation levels of deputy sheriffs, we have become the lowest paid agency of comparable size in the San Joaquin Valley. Further illustrated by a recent salary survey of local agencies conducted by our Sheriff's Command staff and reported to your board by the Sheriff, the Sheriff's Office ranks as the third lowest of all law enforcement agencies within the county. We're slightly ahead of only Tehachapi City and McFarland in starting wages, and that becomes readily apparent why the Sheriff's Office is unable to not only recruit deputies, but more importantly, retain them. As an illustration, there are currently 25 deputy sheriffs employed by the Kern County Sheriff's Office that are in the hiring process for BPD. These are deputies that we have hired, trained, and counted on to help improve our staffing conditions, all at a very high cost to the taxpayers. And when hired, these deputies are going to cost the city very little to train, and they'll be immediately deployable as resources. So why would our deputies choose to go to BPD? Well, the BPD starting salary, according to the staff report conducted by the sheriff, is over $1,100 a month more for entry-level officers and over $500 a month for topped-out veterans. Also, Delano PD reports a total of $700 per month more for topped-out officers compared to the sheriff's office. In anticipating the response of the board's priority of public safety being that a majority share of the general fund goes to public safety, it must be understood that how that money is spent is as important as the amount. It is difficult to understand the logic of wasting large amounts of taxpayer dollars to fund academies to train new deputies, only to have them recruited away by other agencies offering higher salaries, better benefits, and often large signing bonuses. The quickest way for the county to reestablish effective public safety services is through lateral recruitment, by which we could hire and quickly deploy qualified, experienced law enforcement professionals. However, law enforcement has become a highly competitive market, and as it stands, we can't retain our current employees, let alone recruit new ones. As I look forward to returning to the negotiation process in the next coming weeks, I hope the leaders of this county will recognize the importance of making this department marketable with not only our comparable agencies, but also our local agencies. There must be an effort to deliver a fair and equitable contract to the members of KLE that will stop deputies from fleeing to other agencies. There must be an offer that will allow the sheriff to begin recruiting lateral officers. And finally, there must be an offer that does not contain any takeaway or changes to overtime calculations. We understand the difficulties faced by the board, and we appreciate your fiscal restraint and responsibility. However, the testimony you're about to hear from my members in the community should underscore the fact that sometimes fiscal responsibility isn't always about slashing budgets and services. My members deserve better, but more importantly, this community deserves better. I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Coffrin. Before we have other speakers, I'm going to manage the way we hear our public comment this morning. So each speaker gets one opportunity to speak to us during public comment. How many people would like to speak to us regarding this matter, regarding the KLE matter? So raise your hands, please. Okay, so I'm going to limit the amount of time that we're going to speak about this topic to 20 minutes, okay? So if you're here to speak about any other matter, please have a seat. I'll offer you an opportunity to come up in a few moments, and you can talk to us about your matter. But we're going to set the clock for 20 minutes for this matter. I'm not going to set a limit on how much time each person can take, because I don't know how you've coordinated your representation to us. But when we get to 10 minutes, I'm going to limit it down to 1 minute per person, okay? So the 20-minute clock will start. When we get to 10 minutes, it'll go down to 1 minute per person, and then that will conclude our discussion about this matter this morning. So who would be first? Please come forward, ma'am. Can you please give us your name for the record?
My name is Debbie Weiss. I'm here on behalf of the spouses and families of the Kern County deputies that serve as our protectors 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. They protect you, your families. My husband is a Kern County K-9 deputy. He's given 20 years of his life to this community. Do you know what that means? That means that my children did not have their dad there at their graduations. My husband wasn't there for my mother's funeral. He's missed holidays. He's missed so many family functions I can't even begin to tell you. He truly cares about this community and the people he works with. And he works a lot of overtime. Why does he work overtime? Not for the money. He works overtime because everyone's short. When I ask him, why are you working? He says, they're short today. They need someone else. There are many, many nights that the citizens, such as myself and my family in the Rosedale area, do not have coverage. I don't know how many of you guys work or live in Rosedale, but there is nobody out there protecting you. And if they are out there, or when they have to go out there, it's taking them 5 to 10 minutes for them to get there. Your son or daughter's being beaten, raped, stabbed, shot. It's going to take a deputy 5 to 10 minutes to get there in Rosedale. Or in the rural areas, it's even longer. There's just not enough deputies out there to cover those areas. If my husband were in a fight for his life in an area that is not covered as heavily as, say, the East Side or Oildale is, who knows how long backup will take. I do not want to get that phone call in the middle of the night. And I do not want any of these other people or their spouses to get that phone call in the middle of the night. I do not want you to get that phone call about your child that didn't make it because it took the cops so long to get there. Or if your child decided to be a cop. I would hate for you to lose them. My husband is eligible to retire in December, and he will not, and I have begged him to. And he won't because he still has a drive to protect and serve this community. He won't because if he leaves, that's one less deputy we have on the streets of Bakersfield. It's time for you guys to step up as Board of Supervisors. It's time for you to put more deputies on the street. Your mission statement says to enhance the quality of life in Kern County by protecting and serving our citizens. Give them what they need so that my husband and these officers can go home at night to their wives and families. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Wise, for your comments this morning, and thank you for the sacrifices of your family. Good morning. Please give us your name.
Yes, to the supervisors and to the chairman. My name is Curtis James Bingham, Sr., street evangelist for our Lord and Savior, God Almighty, Jesus Christ, who truly is the only begotten Son of our Holy Heavenly Father, God Almighty. I'd also like to say, God put you guys in the position that you're in, and the public said that you guys are the best. That's why you're in office right now. So you got servants out here. They want to be the best for you, too. In order for them to be the best, they have to have what it takes to be the best. I also would like to give you thanks for passing letting us have the penny come in, for listening to Sheriff Youngblood. I thank you for having great respect for his great idea, because it's one of the brightest things I've heard since I've came down here. It shows that you care about the people, yourself, the city, and the Lord when you put that in, because even through, look at the Word of God, it always used the people when they had a shortage so everybody can pitch in. And so that gives people a chance to do something positive. So I'm going to thank you for that. Then I also want to say, when you look at the law enforcement, fire department, district attorney, they all fighting Goliaths. See, but these Goliaths ain't going to be beat. They going to hold them down and help us, but you ain't going to beat them, because the people out there, if so many criminals, they outnumber law enforcement. See, they ain't going anywhere. The Lord says it's going to get worse and worse, and it is. Just watch the news. I ain't saying the news. Just watch the news. And these Goliaths have what? Money. That's why they stand in power. We had the DARE program. We are fighting in Colombia. We're doing everything that we can, but yet still a lot of these programs are now gone. Why? Because of money. But you see, the criminal element, they got money, 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 money. So it's really, really hard when you see them come in here asking for money, like, hey, we just ask them because we can get it. You can't give them enough to battle that's out there. Now, they're getting something to help protect us, but you're not going to beat that out there. And another thing, they got a leader that's on the way. And the scripture tells us he's going to change all the laws. So the evil, and he's going to change them to the negative. So the evil that we got coming ain't here yet. But it shall get worse and worse. So when these leaders coming in for law enforcement, do everything that you can in your power to give them everything they want, because God Almighty himself will bless you back. The law says, and the Lord said, the law enforcement is up under his arm. Romans chapter 13. So you can never do anything better than when you do everything you can to help them, to bless them. They fighting evil. Women don't even carry purses that much anymore. A lot of people stopping to wear rings, stopping to carry wallets. This evil ain't playing. It is here. The Bible says the world going to end because of evil. And who is restraining the evil? Is law enforcement. Look at the fire department. What's happening with them right now? Some of them, we ain't even paying attention. A lot of them got to wear bulletproof vests now. See, a lot of them in Orlando had to go in with bulletproof vests. People ain't paying attention to that. So they looking at the fire. You got to look at the evil, too. They got to start watching out. How'd you like to be watching out for a gun and trying to put out a fire? See, people ain't paying attention to these type things. And when we have a sheriff department without district attorney got to be right up on top of the hill, right along with them, to show these criminals we ain't playing. See, these things have to be done. It ain't nothing I'm saying something great. Look what's out there. This evil ain't playing. It is real. See, until it come to you, then you'll recognize even more. So when God put you guys in the power to do what you're doing, we your servants. Please respect your servants. I know you got to have things in order, but some of them you got to really look at and say, we got to do everything we can to help. See, we got to help. We got to help. See, you know, and so I pray God bless you guys. But just remember, we your servants, and they just want to be the best, like you the best. That's all they want to do. They want to be the best, and they need what it takes to be the best. So I pray God bless you guys. Thank you for giving this opportunity, and I just want to thank you again for the penny thing, and I'm praying God let that come in, because they got to get what they need. And remember, the criminals they fighting, they got billions of dollars, and they going to go out there little bitty like fighting Goliaths, because that's what they fighting, and they ain't going nowhere. So pray God bless you guys. And remember, when they come up, because they're going to come every year, this evil ain't going nowhere. And they fighting Goliath, and so just remember what they truly are doing. Have a great understanding. Pray God bless you guys. In the name of Jesus, thank you.
Thank you. Ma'am, would you like to go next?
Hi, good morning. My name is Melinda Clemmer, and I currently
I'm sorry,
reside...
Could you give us your last name one more time?
Clemmer.
Clemmer, thank you.
C-L-E-M-M-E-R. I currently reside in District 1. I'm a lifelong resident of Kern County. And I can tell you firsthand the challenges that this department's facing. My husband, Mark Clemmer, was a deputy since 2006, and he spent 10 years with the sheriff's office. He worked Wasco, Boron, Lamont. From 2013 to 2015, right after we had got married, life started to become challenging. His attitude, his hatred towards people, his lashing out, and even turned to drinking because of the understaff and the pressures at work. Something had to change or we were gonna end up in divorce. I came to the realization, I'm a business owner also in the District 1, that I was actually paying my staff more than my husband was bringing home, and what was the point of him working? So at that time, he resigned January 23rd, 2016, and joined the family business. That night, he called me, letting me know to get a gun out of the safe, that there was no deputies working Rosedale, and that my response would come from Buttonwillow. So it would be better for me to protect myself and my 7-year-old daughter than call 911. At the same time, he was working South Bakersfield that night, all alone with no partner. East Side would be his quickest response time. That night, I knew that we made the right decision 45 days earlier to put in his resignation. As a real estate broker, just yesterday, before I was called to speak, I was sitting in a deputy's home with his wife, and she was having the same feelings I was having in 2013 and 2015. She said that her husband was wanting to spend more time at home. He was having to work a lot of overtime to make ends meet. She is working more than she's ever worked. He'd actually gave up the special unit and the SWAT so he could be at home with their children more. That was a 10% pay cut. They were no longer able to pay their house payment and afford the normal luxuries in life that they deserve. So I was there to list their house for sale. I can tell you that what they deal with on the street comes home and it directly affects the wives, the children. These are the pillars in our community. These are raising our future. And I'm telling you, the stresses that they bring home from work is unbearable to these families, and they need your help. They need compensation to show that you appreciate them. They must be changed. We need change. I need coverage in Rosedale. I don't want coverage coming from Buttonwillow. These guys need change. These families need the support to make ends meet and the support of their husbands when they come home.
Thank you, Ms. Clemmer. We're now below the... hold on just a second, please. We're now below the 10-minute mark, so I'm going to ask each person to only speak for 1 minute each so we can get through this as quickly as possible and make sure that everybody that we can has an opportunity to be able to speak.
Good morning. My name is Richard Anderson. I'm currently employed with the Sheriff's Office as a sergeant. I've worked for you guys for 18 years, and I find it extremely offensive that we would get 20 minutes to air our grievances in front of you. I've been spit on, kicked, yelled at by the public every day because of staffing. 6 hours to go to a loud music call, I have to field the complaint. What do I tell them? How do I cut this pie up? How do I spread 6 deputies across Bakersfield? Some nights 4. If one of these deputies, one of these brave men and women die on my watch, I'll tell you right now, I'll be up here. This is why I'm up here. I can't sleep at night. I have to schedule them. I try to do the best I can to get them the coverage. There isn't any. 10 minutes? A deputy fights somebody for 10 minutes in Metro Patrol. 7 minutes of dead air. As a sergeant, it is awful. It's a horrible feeling not knowing if he's hurt, shot, stabbed. Guess who gets to make the phone call to his loved ones? I do. There's no spreadsheet for dead deputy, is there? Let's put that on the spreadsheet. 47 fire stations in this county. When's the last time we built a substation for the Sheriff's Office? Staffing in 1986 was better than it is now. I was going to bring the book up and show you. We had 7 squads in 1986. We have 6. We routinely put out 8. That's our minimum staffing. It's ridiculous. Rosedale, the people of Rosedale should be outraged. Absolutely outraged. Most days, you got 0 deputies going out there. And if we get out there, it takes 20 minutes to an hour, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 4 hours to get to you. I don't have much else to say. I was going to tell a bunch more horror stories, but you guys know them. We've told you, all right? You guys know about the gaming casinos that are taking over our neighborhoods, that I have to scrounge deputies up all over the county, beg them to come work for me so I can shut them down in your districts. Millions of dollars is leaving this county illegally. Organized crime is taking over. And you guys are turning a blind eye, because I've told you, I've told him, I've told everybody who listened to me. I told you a year ago we were going to lose 30 to 40 deputies. We lost 52. I'll tell you right now, you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to lose another 75 this time next year. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Hold on just a second, sir. Just a second. There are many more people in line than I saw raise hands. So at the end of the time when this expires, I'll extend some more time, and we'll have more time to do that. I didn't realize there were this many people that wanted to speak. Yes, sir. Please give us your name and proceed.
Good morning. My name is Jeff Pereira, and I'm a concerned citizen and also a business owner in town. I'm going to try to leave emotion out of it and maybe just put a clear perspective on things. I live in a nice neighborhood, very fortunate for that. In the last 6 months, there's been a few breaking and enterings, cars being stolen, and we can't even get a sheriff officer out to do an investigation or take a report. And I mean, I paid over $80,000 for my building permit to build my home, and my taxes and everything else, the property taxes and everything else, and I feel like myself and my neighbors deserve at least some representation and the ability to get an officer out into our neighborhood if we have a problem. The second thing I'd like to bring up is as many of you or several of you are customers of mine in my business. I have a solar business in town. I only bring it up to help you understand that I employ almost 100 people, and my starting wage for an entry-level, untrained, unskilled labor is $18 an hour, and I also pay for their health insurance, and I train them myself. By the time that somebody's employed for my company for a year, they're typically making over $21 an hour, and they could be expected by their second-year anniversary to be making in excess of, or right around $23, $24, $25 an hour. These men are not risking their lives, and bottom line is they're not nearly as responsible for all the other emotional and physical risk that these other gentlemen and women are being subject to. So I hope that you could just take that and put it into perspective, that it absolutely blows me away that the people that I have that work for my company make more money than the people that we pay to protect us and protect our homes and our families and our public safety. So I hope you'll take that into perspective as well. And at the end of the day, retention is the key to success. Most of the people that I have in my company, I still have the first people that I hired. First 10 people I hired, I probably still employ, and my overall retention rate is very high because I try to pay well and keep my overhead down and do the right things. And I feel like that, you know, the pay that we offer these folks, quite frankly, is just substandard. And there's no wonder that you guys have open positions and have people fleeing the sheriff's department to go to other places with the type of pay that we expect them to live on. And I'd like you to take that in consideration.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
My name is Laura Escobedo, and I come to you today as a law enforcement wife and a former law enforcement officer myself, third generation. I urge you today before you vote to ask yourself, what price can you put on a human life? Whatever you allocate to law enforcement, that will set the price. I've served in both Los Angeles and Kern County, and I've seen firsthand the difference in operating with millions versus just thousands. I've watched too many law enforcement officers be buried, including some of my own family. I think I speak for most in this room when I say that this profession, it's not a job, it's a calling. I hope you never know the pain that comes with being handed a folded flag, or like me, living with a lifelong disability because of the job. Mr. Scrivener, I watched you make a public promise to go on a ride-along in Rosemond, That area is completely understaffed. There's nights where my husband is the only officer on to cover Rosamond, Mojave, Boron, and Tehachapi. There's times he doesn't come home because he'll be working 18 hours. There's nobody. There's no one. And what does he get paid? Almost the same as a manager at McDonald's. You never showed up on the ride-along. You sent your accountant. You never went. Your accountant went. You sit there with a salary and benefits of $213,000 a year, and you didn't get in that car, but a 20-something will do it for $40,000 a year. That is what separates the men from the boys. Deputies across this county are plagued with low staffing, and East Kern is not only low-staffed, but extremely isolated. We have considered leaving Kern County for better pay, and that's where your budget can bring about improvements. KCSO is a revolving door. It's a training ground because the pay is embarrassing. I would be embarrassed to sit in your chair, have your salary, and not be able to adequately fund my law enforcement. You give yourselves raises, and unlike the deputies, you don't pay your benefits, they pay their own. You're failing your law enforcement, which is also failing your constituents. These are the things that you need to consider before passing a budget that affects more than a ledger, more than a leader you may or may not like, and more than a building on Norris Road. And I would ask those of you that do not agree with the allocating more funds to law enforcement to remember me, should my husband ever be called to make that ultimate sacrifice. You won't be welcome at his funeral. If you don't appreciate him and his fellow deputies now, then don't think you're going to show up and pretend to do so over a flag-draped casket. Don't insult us with empty and meaningless words. Without proper funding for our law enforcement, any loss sustained is blood on your hands.
Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Hold on just a second.
I'm sorry.
Hold on just a second.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, thank you. Ms. Escovedo, I appreciate your comments, and with all due respect, I believe that the meeting that you're referring to was the Sheriff's Appreciation Dinner in Rosamond, where Officer Orlando Ramos asked me to go on a ride-along, and I did go with him. And I think the accountant that you're referring to is our CAO, Ryan Alsop, because after I was finished with that ride-along, I was quite taken aback and very concerned with the lack of staffing that I saw in comparison to the ride-along that I'd gone on just a couple years ago prior. And so I asked Mr. Alsop to go on one as well, so he could see with his own eyes the lack of staffing that we have out in the desert communities. And so just wanted to set the record straight that I, of course, did go, and it wasn't my accountant, it was the County Administrative Officer, Ryan Alsop, that went about 2 weeks after I did, with Mr. Ramos. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Please give us your name.
Good morning. My name is Izam Perez. Today I brought a letter written by a former deputy sheriff who has since gone on to another agency. The letter reads, "My name is Kevin Tahadi, and I was hired on as a deputy sheriff for the Kern County Sheriff's Office in August of 2012. I spent 3 years there, going from courts to transportation and then to patrol in the Ridgecrest substation. I loved working for the Sheriff's Office primarily due to the people I worked with. Unfortunately, I made the hard decision to leave for a higher paying agency. Though it was a hard decision for me, I could not provide my family with the life they deserved with the risk I was taking on the salary I was being paid. I recall being sent to the domestic battery in progress in Inyo Kern, where the male was armed with a knife. I was the only deputy on at the time, and my closest backup was a deputy assigned to the Mojave substation. That deputy was on another critical call. I asked the Ridgecrest Police Department to assist me, but they said due to their own staffing levels, they would only, quote, monitor the radio, end quote, for me. I went alone on a violent attack involving a knife-wielding man, all by myself. Luckily for me, luckily for everyone, everything turned out okay, but that was my last straw. I love the Sheriff's Office, but I love my family and safety more. I made the decision to lateral to a higher paying agency with better staffing levels. I am now a field training officer and a canine handler. I wish I could have kept my skill set with the Sheriff's Office. Though I have left, I hope this letter will move the board to pay the remaining deputies a better wage, which in turn will retain the staffing. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, before you start, I need to reset the clock. So let's put another 20 minutes on. There's still a number of people, and we want to give them an opportunity to be heard. Yes, sir. Please give us your name.
My name is Rustin Pasqua. I'm a deputy with Kern County Sheriff's Office.
Pasqua? Yeah.
I'd like to start off by saying this is a great department. My experience, while brief, has been enjoyable. I work with great people. Just like all things, even good things, there's always room for improvement. The pay scale of this department used to attract many deputies to work here. And somewhere along the lines, things have turned upside down. Now we are one of the largest and underpaid departments in the area. The violent crime rate is up, the population is up, and the pay rate is down. There are a lot of things wrong with that equation. I personally have to work extra overtime to simply make ends meet. I'd much rather work overtime in order to actually spend time with my family on vacation. Unfortunately, there's a lot of temptation around me to leave this department because of the risk of the job is the same, but the wages are much more enticing than what we are currently being given. There's a pattern in this department where it has been difficult to retain deputies willing to work for what little we are paid, to do the same exact things elsewhere in departments that deliver more wages than ours. I spoke to many of my fellow deputies, comrades, partners, and we all feel the same way, that if this doesn't change, if we aren't compensated at least comparably to our surrounding counties for the work we do, we are likely to find work at another agency elsewhere. I urge you to please consider a substantial pay raise for the deputies of Kern County Sheriff's Department when reviewing Kern County's budget. It is well deserved and long overdue. I'd really love to stay in this department. With our current contract, staffing levels, and max exodus of deputies, I'm actually seeking employment elsewhere. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Zach Biddle. I'm a sergeant with the Kern County Sheriff's Office. I've been a sergeant for 6 years. I promoted 6 years ago, and I was assigned to the Lamont substation, where I ran that substation for 3 years, during which time I oversaw the opening of the Tojon outlets. And I was very excited to see additional revenue coming into our county, thinking even back then, man, maybe this might amount to some benefits for the sheriff's office. 6 years later, we're here. I don't want to be here talking to you guys. I want to be out doing my job right now, looking for stuff in the river. But it's frustrating to see these people leave. You heard from a letter from Deputy Jihadi. Well, his partner, Deputy Hernandez, worked for me in Lamont, and he left for a higher paying agency, making more money than I made as a sergeant. It's disgusting. I got burglarized after vacation 2 weeks ago, my own garage in Rosedale, my house. Almost $10,000 worth of stuff was taken. Can't write my own report, so I called for a deputy, and guess what? You already know. There's no deputies in Rosedale. I thought, oh, I'll wait until he gets done with the call because it's a cold crime. No deputies in Rosedale. Disgusting. If somebody big and scary comes and knocks on my door and rings my doorbell, you get to call the sheriff. Disgusting. I'm the Explorer coordinator as well. How am I supposed to take these 15 and 21-year-olds and recommend they come work for us? My job is to do right by them, and how am I supposed to encourage them to come work here under these conditions? I don't. I encourage them to go elsewhere. You guys need to fix it. You say the solution isn't easy, but it is. You got a sinking ship. As a naval officer, Supervisor Gleason, you know how to patch that hole, but you keep throwing money at academies. You've heard from Anderson today. How many deputies have we lost, but you've trained and trained and trained, and we keep losing and losing and losing? You're trying to get water out of a sinking ship with a colander without patching the hole first. It's irresponsible. You guys tout yourself on being responsible with your taxpayer dollars. How is that responsible? You're just throwing money out the hole. Fix it.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Brandon Squay. I've been a deputy with the Sheriff's Department since March 24th. My experience with the Sheriff's Department so far has been watching the exodus of all of the new hires. The first of which was at the end of the academy. He got an offer from the Sheriff's Department, got another offer from Fresno. He went with Fresno. They got paid more. 2 months later, they opened up laterals to Bakersfield Police Department. A significant number of those 25 that were mentioned earlier are from under 1 year of employment here at the Sheriff's Department because they get paid more immediately. I'm staying here based on loyalty and optimism, but you can't ensure the safety of your constituents in the long term for us staying here based on loyalty and optimism. I hope we get this solved.
Thank you, sir.
What's your name again? What's your name? I didn't catch it.
Squay.
Squay?
Disquay.
Disquay.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is David Hubbard. I'm a sergeant for the Sheriff's Office, and I'm currently assigned as a homicide supervisor. Many of the stories you've heard today outlining situations of poor patrol staffing are absolutely true. I can attest to that coming from patrol myself about a year ago. However, this shortage hurts everywhere. Unfortunately, Kern County was recently named as having the highest murder rate per capita in the state. Year to date, we've had approximately 33 murders in our unincorporated area of Kern County. The homicide unit is responsible for those homicide investigations, as well as all follow-up on domestic violence, simple battery, aggravated battery, kidnapping, anything else that we're asked to do. These high statistics do not correlate with our current staffing. The Sheriff's Office is currently staffed with 8 detectives and myself. Over the past few weeks, I've taken the liberty upon myself to contact other agencies of similar size, responsible for similar populations. The industry standard throughout the state for each homicide team to investigate 4 or less homicides a year, each team. Our detectives, between 9 and 13 a year. The other staggering thing is that most other homicide units are not responsible for anything other than homicide investigations. We take on all of this. The sheriff is faced with a difficult situation. He's allocated a limited amount of resources as he sees best fit. He's doing everything that he can, but unfortunately it's just not helping. It's hurting everywhere. Short staffing is a direct result of the compensation package that has come from previous contract negotiations, and it's no better with the contract negotiation that was proposed recently. Sheriff is unable to attract high volumes or high quality staff with current or recently proposed contracts. He's unable to retain new staff members as they elect to go to other agencies that are not overworked and undercompensated. He is unable to retain experienced staff members who elect to retire early in order to seek a better compensation package that includes reasonable retirement medical benefits. I'm here today to ask the board to give the sheriff the tools that he needs to make Kern County's law enforcement agency the best it can be. Give us an opportunity to succeed by hiring and retaining quality staff members who want to work long and fulfilling careers here in Kern County. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Good morning.
Good morning. I am Sarah Allen. I've worked for the Sheriff's Department as a deputy for 5 years. Before becoming a deputy, I worked as a supervisor in the banking industry for 17 years. I entered the Sheriff's Academy at a young age of 36 years old. I had an amazing career in banking and loved everyone I worked for. However, I wanted more in my life, and I wanted to make a difference in people's life. I endured the 6 months of the academy and became employed as a deputy at the Central Receiving Facility. I soon discovered the Sheriff's Department lacked retention and pay. I found myself working a lot of overtime just to make ends meet. My family life suffered and still does. I slowly started to watch my academy mates leave the department one by one for better pay. I graduated as one of 20 deputies. 1 deputy left for a civilian job for better pay. 2 deputies left for out-of-state law enforcement agencies for better pay. 2 left to work for Paso Robles law enforcement agencies for better pay. 2 left to Ventura law enforcement for better pay. And 7 went to Bakersfield Police Department for better pay. As of today's date, there's only 6 of us left. And out of the 6 are 3 that were previously employed by the Sheriff's Department and did not want to leave because of their retirement. I question myself every day why I'm still with this department, because I'm constantly being recruited by Bakersfield Police Department and the Ventura Police Department. I'm extremely discouraged to watch my fellow academy mates leave because I know the grass is not always greener on the other side. But being previously in management, I know you have to do what is best for yourself and your family. Because the Sheriff's Department could not retain deputies, the deputies who worked at the Central Receiving Facility grew accustomed to working below standard staffing levels. Most days I worked, I was the only female deputy working for 12 hours. I would be responsible for working the female deck and the inmate reception center. My responsibilities increased 200%. And at least 2 of my work days, I was the only deputy working on the female deck. 1 deputy with approximately 60 inmates. The odds speak for itself. As well as being the only female working, I was responsible for training new deputies. I trained majority male deputies, which means the male deputy was trained on the female deck most of the time. As well, that speaks for itself. Since I graduated the academy, the Sheriff's Department has hired only 8 females. Out of the 8 females, 3 have left to different agencies for better pay. The Sheriff's Department recently ran 2 academies with 0 females. After 4 years waiting patiently, I was finally on the list to attend the field training program. Basically, I finally get to go to the streets. However, I was told I would be delayed because there was not enough deputies to train the new deputies. When I finally made it to the streets, I realized how much I enjoy my job. I am told by the public at least once during my shift how grateful they are to see a female deputy on the street. Strangers go out of their way to shake my hand and thank me for my service. I am asked how I become a girl cop. I love talking about my position, but I stop myself when I have to talk about the amount I get paid, because then I start to think about why I'm getting paid is not worth me risking my life each and every day. I know and believe the Sheriff's Department is a great place to work for. I work with amazing people who truly love their job, but I have seen too many great people leave this department for one reason only, and the pay. It saddens me that you don't think we are worth it.
Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Victoria Rivera, and I am new deputy for the Kern County Sheriff's Office. Before working for this department, I was a bartender at a local restaurant. I valued my job, but it is nothing more than that. I worked approximately 25 hours for tips and minimum wage. I applied for the Kern County Sheriff's Office to become a respected member of our community. I came into this department knowing that I would probably profit close to the same amount as a deputy versus being a part-time bartender. Deputies coming into this department go through an extensive training academy to become a patrol deputy. And new female deputies are informed that they have to work in a detention setting only until the opportunity opens for field training. At the same time, it can be frustrating because she has to wait until there is a backfill of another female deputy. This can take as long as 6 months to a few years, depending on the number of female applicants in the course of a training academy. A female deputy like me waits on the next graduating class in hopes my replacement and urges they don't lateral over into a different agency. Female deputies are a necessity because there are more female criminalities arising. There are female deputies that have worked at the Central Receiving Facility for approximately 4 years, waiting for their chance to go out to patrol. Some have stayed and some decided there were better and faster opportunities in a different agency. The thought has crossed my mind. I see better incentives lying in other agencies which would benefit my lifestyle. My lifestyle only includes my house payment, my vehicle payment, and the necessities needed for my family. Anything more, I would have to work an additional 30+ hours of overtime to do anything extra with them. A more sensible solution would be residing in Kern County, but working for the other agency here, making more money with better benefits. Instead, I try to remain loyal to the Sheriff's Office and hope things will get better. In the meantime, I have to work a certain amount of overtime to maintain my life. In doing so, this takes valuable time away from my family. I can't say that I was born and raised in Kern County, but this is the place I chose to raise my kids. I wish I could say money isn't everything, but when you're a mother and the value of your life is devalued, as a professional public safety officer, it becomes a concern. I believe a change in our department would give women like me encouragement to work in our office and be dedicated to wear our patch for many years. The future is evolving and our office is getting left behind. It's embarrassing to know that the county refuses to give more to the people that are actually representing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Brandon Rutledge. I'm a sergeant with the Kern County Sheriff's Office. I currently run our training academy. I'm in the middle of our 3rd training academy that I've been in charge of. The previous 2 academies graduated a total of 70 people. On top of that, we graduated about 12 self-sponsored, meaning that they paid their own way to go through. Of those 12, we've acquired 2. 2 have sought employment with this agency. One of those self-sponsored has already left to Fresno. He spent 2 weeks with our agency and then left for the bigger and better deal. Now, I'm loyal to this department. I've been here for 17 years, and I'll always be loyal to my department. That being said, I was getting ready to graduate my first academy class about a year ago, and I had a recruit about to become a deputy ask me in front of everybody, why doesn't the Board of Supervisors like us? Why won't they pay us better? And I can't make that up. And I didn't know what to say initially, but I decided, keeping my loyalty to my department in mind, to lie to his face. And I told him that the Board of Supervisors does care, that help is on the way, that you guys understand that we have a retention issue because of low pay and staffing. And I did it because, not because of the loyalty to you men up here, but loyalty to my department and the community that I serve. I recently saw that deputy who's going through the application process with another agency. And we started talking about the contract that you guys offered us. I couldn't lie to him any longer. I didn't know what to say. I was lost for words. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Matt Alvarez. I'm a 6-year veteran of the Sheriff's Office, currently assigned to the Fraser Park substation. I'd like to kind of take away from, I'd like to give you a different perspective, not necessarily based towards what the deputies are going through, but what your constituents are going through. Right around this time last year, I was injured in an on-duty altercation. My backup, side note, was coming from Lamont. I was working by myself in Fraser Park. I was placed on a non-uniformed light duty status, and I was temporarily assigned to the Sheriff's Office Communication Center, where I received 911 calls and non-emergency calls. I entered those calls for services into our system so that the street deputies can respond to them. I still work overtime there to this day because their staffing is just as bad as ours. Having worked there, I've come to realize that the reasonable, rational person calls 911 at the worst time of their lives. The reasonable, rational person does. They need law enforcement's help. They're unable to fix or remedy whatever situation they have, so they call us. Fortunately, my training and experience at the comm center has allowed me to dictate what is an actual emergency and what is not, so I can prioritize the calls. As our staffing has gone down, priority calls for service have gone way up, as you well know. It's not uncommon, though, for a reporting party to call 911 once, twice, 3 times after their initial call was placed. And the question's usually always the same, something to the effect of, where are you? Or are they coming? Are they going to get here soon? And it's usually accompanied by yelling, screaming, sobbing, agony, all the above. Try being on the other end of that line. Try taking that phone call. What do I say to them? Sorry, ma'am, but we don't have any deputies available right now. That doesn't cut it for me. That doesn't cut it for her. Sorry, sir, but you'll just have to separate yourself until we get there. Maybe. I mean, I've told people to go inside a closet or go inside a room and lock the door behind them. That will be there soon. It's a temporary solution. Do you know when they're going to get here? No, I honestly don't. I have no idea. But I don't tell them that. I tell them we'll be there soon. My goal is to calm them down and to give them hope even when I know that hope is distant. Mind you, these priority calls are in progress, violent crimes occurring. Not a trespassing investigation, not a loud music call. These are in progress, violent crimes. And they occur daily, and the problem is only getting worse. Calling 911 to report a violent crime is, of course, encouraged. Calling 911 again to report that the problem is getting worse is justified. If it's getting worse, absolutely, please call us. Again, let us know. Is that going to decrease our response time? Probably not. But I don't want my callers to know that. I don't want the people calling, asking for our help to know that. So what would be the point of calling 911 if they knew we wouldn't be there in a reasonable time? I don't want the caller to know that at the worst time in their life, we won't show up for about 30 minutes or an hour because of staffing issues. This is the true reality of the situation. I fancy myself a talker. It's gotten me out of plenty of tough spots in my career. And I feel like I'm able to talk people off the proverbial ledge from time to time. But now I'm honestly running out of things to say. One of our missions at the Sheriff's Office is to provide the same level of service that we would wish to extend to our family. Put yourself in the caller's shoes. Put yourself in my shoes. What if it was your family wondering when we'll show up, when it's the worst time of their lives? What if it's my family? Is they'll get there soon? Is that good enough for you? Because it's not good enough for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Andrew Barros, and I'm a deputy at the Kern County Sheriff's Office. Before becoming a deputy, I worked in the oil fields of Kern County. And like many others in that field, I worked long hours and gone days at a time. Working 80 hours a week was normal, but is what I needed to do at that time. I came from modest means and had the opportunity to provide better for my children. My job in the field required long hours, but I was able to move them from nice neighborhoods, buy them nice clothes, keep my pantry full, and put them through extracurricular activities. Spending years in that lifestyle, I missed out a lot of my children's lives. I made the switch to law enforcement because I felt that this is where I needed to be. I had proven to myself I could be a responsible, positive person the public would be proud of. Between a career spent abroad, having lost its luster as I no longer wanted to work my children's lives away, and the opportunity to become a deputy became present, I applied to the sheriff's office. And I applied knowing that there was no pot of gold at the end of this rainbow, but a career of satisfaction protecting those that needed it and helping the people of Kern County, as well as a better schedule to spend more time with my children. While I love this department, I wouldn't change careers for anything. I have found myself working that same 80 hours a week, now just to make ends meet at our current compensation. Every deputy who works for KCSO is painfully aware that we are not compensated comparably to other departments throughout the state. We don't face less danger, less risk, and less crime than those other officers throughout the state. Why then are we not afforded pay and benefits that are at least on par with similar law enforcement agencies? I want to stay at this department, but the opportunities available at the other departments are well known to all who are employed at KCSO. I've applied to several other agencies because I don't feel as though we are adequately valued and sufficiently compensated for the work that we do. Being a law enforcement officer is an honor and a privilege and something I take great pride in, but being a father who is present in his children's lives and a provider for his children is even more important to me. I want to continue to serve the citizens of Kern County as a deputy sheriff and make a good life for my children, but compared to other agencies on paper, there's just no reason to stay. Loyalty should be a two-way street, and I believe at this point it's not. The county relies on our loyalty to the department, the job, and our need for overtime to keep us here at the expense of a reasonable work-life balance. Unless you agree to provide the deputies who work for this department with comparable pay and benefits, you force us to leave the KCSO and to serve the citizens of other communities who genuinely care about their professional public safety services. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. The second 20-minute time has expired, so I'm going to let these last speakers be the last three speakers regarding this item. Please confine your comments to 2 minutes apiece. Thank you.
Okay. I'm probably one of the only people here that's
Sir,
not
you
a
need to
sheriff
give us- you
deputy.
need to
Not
give us
a
your name for the record, please.
Michael Bigley, Tehachapi. I also have a group called Transparency and Accountability in Government, which is a watchdog organization. So first of all, I didn't come here as a CLE representative, but it's fortunate they're here today because I did come here to talk about the lack of deputy sheriffs in Kern County. And I'm bringing the plea from the people because I've been in Boron, I've been in all the unincorporated areas. We have no sheriffs. We don't, the only reason there's law and order is because most of us are armed. We know it's faster to call the coroner than it is to call the sheriff department, so we don't bother. Now, I find it ironic, and this is in my opinion, you berate the fire chief for asking for fees from the people, and yet you're asking for a 1% tax increase, which could go for public safety, but you didn't write it that way. So the consensus is that you're going to put it in the general budget. You guys are not the most trusted entity in the county. I think they're going to vote it down. So the more tax proposals and the more bonds and everything that goes on our bill, the less chance of anything is of getting passed. We've got Prop 3 coming on the California ballot, which is an $8 billion water structure bond again. We've got this 1% tax proposal. Now we've got a fire fee coming up. The California fire tax is not gone. It's just suspended. It's coming back. And up in Tehachapi, we have a $43 million recreation bond they're putting on the ballot against most of the citizens' wishes, which our supervisor supports. So that's another thing that's going to kill that 1% tax. So I think you guys, instead of trying to cut everybody's budget and make these guys work under your budget, which they can do it without public safety, that if we have safe areas, we have growth. People don't move to areas that aren't safe. We need growth. We need to expand the tax base, not tax the taxpayer more money. So if we have growth and companies coming in here, that's where the budget's going to come from, not from cutting the budgets of all our first responders, our law enforcement. We need these guys to get what they deserve. We don't need them leaving our agencies. It costs a lot of money to train every officer, every fireman. We train them for other agencies.
Mr. Bigley, your time has expired.
Thank you.
Please draw your comments to a close. Good morning, sir.
Deputy Stuart Porty. I'm a 15-year veteran I want to keep this nice and clean and simple. Gentlemen, raise your hand if you worked overtime today, or this week, this month, voluntary. This is how many voluntary people worked overtime this week. Imagine if we stopped volunteering because we felt unappreciated, undervalued, underpaid. For one day, 1 week, a month. It's a nasty visual. You can force us to work overtime, but you can't force us to volunteer. Thank you.
Sir. Please give us your name once again, please.
Bishop Francisco. Last night I had a dream that I was standing around a bunch of men, and they had on black, and they said, and I saw Mr. Maggart, and Mr. Maggart said, "Are you coming?" And I woke up this morning, and I got on, put on my clothes, and I came. And I wanted to say, this is the order of America. First, we're up under God. Then we're up under those that are in authority in our system, and we should submit ourselves to them, and we're ministers of justice. I didn't come to minimize. I understand what they say, because I fight in the spiritual world. And even in the spiritual world, I say I need more preachers need to be out here praying and working these streets, and I understand their feelings. And I know that this was ordained by the Lord, because I know this town. I was born and raised in this town, and I know that I want to encourage everybody that sin and evil is not going to overcome. And I want to encourage the officers that the work that you are doing right now in the spiritual world and in our churches, we see these criminals changing their lives. And I understand your feeling about being out there and don't feel like you're getting paid enough for the jobs that you do. Because sometime in the spiritual world, I'm on Union Avenue, street ministry. And sometimes the Spirit has said, go pray out there on Union. And I go out there on Union and I pray, and I see police officer cars flying like crazy. You know, and I'm right there with you guys, but I'm out there praying and asking God to deliver you guys, make sure you get back home. But I'm saying, continue to fight. No matter what, that's a sacrifice as being an officer. No matter how much you're getting paid, and you do deserve much pay. I'm not minimizing anything. You do deserve much pay, because I'm out there and I'm seeing you. I've had to call the police department. If the spiritual world is not going crazy, it's enough time. They're out there. But when the spiritual world, I noticed, when they go crazy, hey, it's the response time, and we have a lot of more things we have a lot of more crimes that does not come and be brought to the light, or they don't arrest them. And I'm just saying that to the city, and I know this city, I was born and raised in this city. And I know this city and those city officials that are here and that are in office love this city, and they're hearing what we're saying today. And I know that this city is going to do what it's supposed to do to win. And we already win. The Bible teaches us that we already win. We just got to keep fighting.
Thank you, Bishop. Sir. Sir, are you here to talk about the same issue? Pardon me? Are you here to talk about the same issue? About the issue of the concern of the deputies? Is that what you're here to speak about?
Yes.
Okay, can you come forward? You're welcome to take your 2 minutes.
What do we have this meeting for, right?
You weren't in line with all the others. I didn't know if you were here for the same item.
I
Can
didn't
you give
feel
us your
like
name,
there was
please?
enough comment from the public.
Can you give us your name, please?
My name is Durwood Sygrist. I've lived out in, I won't take a full minute, but I lived out in the lakeside area, we call it, between 99 and Gosford and Taft Highway and Bear Mountain. I've lived there for 40 plus years. And I remember the days when it took a long time to get a deputy there, but at least we got a deputy there. Now, we don't have a lot of serious crime in that area. It's a peaceful, rural farming area. And we know that Lamont and Arvin do have a lot of serious things, so we aren't too upset by the fact that we don't get all the attention, but we need some attention. It's shameful that we can't pay our deputies in this great county any more than we're paying them. That's terrible. You guys were put in office to solve these kinds of problems. Fix it, like the man said. Fix it. We need these guys. They're what's between us and chaos. They're what's between us and safety. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I want to thank all the deputies and the members of their family and the public that came to be supportive of all of you today for being here. We hear what you're saying, and we just want to know we respect the message that you're giving us. I would like to ask our CAO, Ryan Alsop, if you would, there's a great deal of I wouldn't say confusion, but I think there have been some misimpressions about some of what has transpired, and I would like Mr. Alsop, please, to explain where we are in this negotiation process and what was on the table before.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and I want to thank everybody for being here today. This is, just a couple of comments. I don't know what it's like to get a call in the middle of the night, but my wife and daughter do. Which happened in 1996 here in Bakersfield. So I, through them, understand what that's like somewhat. It's the toughest part of our job, doing the board's work, dealing with, leadership of bargaining units that, and not letting it get personal, because it can easily go there. And so we've all got to rise above things, and in certain moments it's tough. I've got to admit it was tough this last go-round with the bargaining team, with KLEA. And it's tough because a lot of folks don't understand all of the detail and all of the communication back and forth between the two groups.
Stop talking and take action.
And so I would,
Excuse me, Mr. Alsop. We've been completely respectful and heard out every speaker who wanted to speak. I think it's appropriate for you to allow Mr. Alsop to speak as well, because
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Alsop.
I'll presume, and I'll try to close it up pretty quickly, sir. We went into negotiations with the union leadership team. What was sent and agreed to at the end was a product of, was a tentative agreement, meaning the union leadership team agreed to it and our side agreed to it. And I can tell you that it was, at the end of the day, that proposal was what the leadership team asked for. It is not what the county proposed. I'd like to talk a little bit about what the county proposed, unsolicited, and this was on behalf of the board.
Garbage too.
We'll go ahead and let those that want to be disrespectful and leave do that. But in a moment, Mr. Alsop will explain so that if you want to be informed and hear about what is available, you're welcome to stay. Please exit the room, sir, if you're done hearing.
Would you like me to proceed, Mr. Chairman?
Let's give him just a moment to go ahead and clear the room. Okay, sir, go ahead.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The proposal that we provided to KLA leadership would have increased, proposed increasing deputy level, entry-level sheriff's deputy salaries by 12%. And that would build upon an agreement that we had previously reached with the union to take Deputy 1 sheriffs to Deputy 2 within a year, which would provide greater salary. So it would have immediately increased Deputy 1 level sheriff's pay to 12%, providing parity with BPD. And after a year, those Deputy 1 positions would be able to move into a Deputy 2 position, earning a 5% increase, and then consecutive 5-year 5% increases each year after that. In addition, and this wasn't a COLA, there was an offer of a performance and retention bonus payment that would have paid deputies, a large number of deputies immediately up to 10% of their annual base salary. Many of those folks who have been here 15 years and beyond would have received 10% immediately in their salary. And the bonus schedule would have started at 8 years. And so after you get through with Deputy 1 and Deputy 2 level positions, you get into, deputies would be in a position in year 8 to receive an automatic 2.5% of their base annual salary. In year 10, that would go to 5%. In years 12, that would go to 7.5%. And again, in year 15, it would go to 10%. This was an offer made that we worked very hard to figure out a pay schedule for, given our budget challenges. We worked very hard with other department heads and with our staff to come up with something at your board's request that we could do right now for deputies that was smart and sustainable. And part of the payment of this would have a general fund impact, which was provided for in the budget. Part of paying for this would be bringing overtime compensation in line with the Fair Labor Standards Act, but with several exemptions that would have taken care of a lot of the concern, I think, that a lot of the deputy sheriffs have with a lot of the overtime that they work. So I believe that would have been a minimal impact. And we're happy, our office is happy to discuss any of the detail and go into numbers with anybody that wants to at any time. And also ending fitness pay for all new hires as a way to pay for this long term. So no existing deputy would have been affected by this at all. And if they don't have fitness pay currently, we would have given time for existing deputies and personnel to go get fitness pay. So these are some of the ways to offset the cost, and then your board was willing to do a general fund impact that we were able to work out to sustain this effort long term. We are aware, keenly aware of the recruitment and retention problems in the Sheriff's Department, and we tried to put together a proposal that was focused on that in light of the fact that our general fund is in structural deficit, $17.8 million. So I think you can make an argument that it'd probably be smart not to do anything in those financial conditions, but your board has put a priority on our Sheriff's Department and on the recruitment and retention issues within the Sheriff's Department and among Sheriff's deputies. And we, I think, provided a proposal that was something that we can build on. This would have been a year and a half. It would have been over in a year and a half, and none of this is a COLA. None of this is separate from a COLA. So it was something to build upon, and I think that it had some good things in it, particularly for some of the people who have stuck around and been loyal and have worked hard. We're sorry that that wasn't ultimately provided. But at the end of the day, what was provided was something largely the leadership wanted. And we're going to be posting all of our documents online, everything that was provided by us to the union leadership. That's going to be accessible to everybody online. We're going to be doing that throughout the process. We have another meeting scheduled Monday with the leadership team, and we hope we can discuss plans to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're now going to offer an opportunity for members of the public to speak to us about other matters that are not, we've concluded our discussion about Current Law Enforcement Association's concerns. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak about other matters that are not otherwise on our agenda this morning? Yes, sir.
Excuse me for walking so slow. I have this thing called spinal stenosis. And
Thank you, sir. Could you give us your name for the record,
sure.
please?
My name is Ralph Abrascato. I live at 400 20th Street, which is called Park 20th, and that's the reason why I'm here. And to finish what I was saying, because of this spinal stenosis, this constant pain that I'm in for about the last 3 years, I can't even dance with short women because I'm bent over. But so much for my humor. Back about 3 years ago, I was homeless. And I went down to the VA clinic, and somewhere in the midst of it, the VA got me through CVAF lodging at a place called Park 20th on 20th and V. I've been there pretty close to 3 years. After I moved in, about 3 months later, a gentleman moved into the apartment below me. I'm in apartment 213. He moved into the apartment 113. And he started pounding on the wall anytime I would walk or anytime I would sit down or whatever it is. Now, I can understand that there is noise that we make in the course of our daily life living experiences. But this guy was doing it constantly, every time I would move. And then on one occasion, whenever I was sitting at my table talking to my neighbor, he came up and assaulted me. Now, when I opened the door, it thrusted his finger at my nose. Now, as we all know that the legal definition of assault is the immediate apprehension of a harmful or offensive touching. After that, and I called the police, Bakersfield's, what do you want to call them, Bakersfield's finest. They finally came and they had to go down there and talk to him because even during that period of time, his name was Gordon Meyer. During that period of time that the police were there, he was banging on the walls. Now, when I was in college, I took a couple of psych courses, but I'm no therapist. I brought this to the resident manager's attention. Her name is Rebecca Esparza. And basically what I got out of her was a conversation was something like, well, you guys can play nice and go play someplace else, whatever. I've taken the problem to Tina Posley at the Housing Authority, and I got some more of this, just be nice and, go play nice. I've taken it to Heather Hempel, and I got the same kind of response. The only time I got a response that brought this unnecessary noise to an end is when I talked to your chief of staff, Evan Henderson, and he finally, after 2 times of talking with him, he finally got a hold of Heather Hempel, and they finally had a meeting between me and this Gordon Meyer. Now, in this meeting, he said, well, he knows I wasn't going to hit him. Well, I got to tell you, who do you know is going to be, in a moment of whatever, is going to turn to violence? Now, I talked to a couple of police officers, and they said, why don't you just get a gun and shoot the SOB when he comes up to your place?
Mr. Barricato, there's 2 minutes allowed for you to express your concern to us. You have now gone over that by over a minute. So could you...
what I'm saying is there's a problem. I'm sorry.
Your concern is in the city of Bakersfield. We're happy to help connect you with the Housing Authority or with or any way that we can help you if it's in our jurisdiction.
Can you
please
help me
share
with the Housing Authority?
Housing Authority.
To have somebody in the Housing Authority take this seriously, because I tell you, I'm trying to put together a business, and if I can start to make money, I'm going to be able to move out of there. I'm going to be able to invest money into this community, and that way you get a little better, more of a tax base to draw from. Can you help me to get rid of, I want quiet enjoyment of my residents. That's it.
So, sir, can you please give your contact information to Mr. Alsop over here?
One last thing. I've
we'll
heard
follow
you
up
on radio shows, and you and Mr. Couch, I think you're excellent.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your encouragement. Who else would like to share something with us this morning? Please come forward. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Cynthia Zimmer, and I'm the Kern County District Attorney-elect. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm here to speak to you about our proposal, our request by the District Attorney's Office to create 2 new positions for investigators in our Public Integrity Unit. I accompanied District Attorney Green here before this board in July of 2018, in which Ms. Green made a request of the board for funding for these positions. I think Ms. Green made a good case for why we need those 2 additional positions. And I want you to know, as District Attorney-elect, that I agree with her, her argument and her reasoning behind that. We are in need of these 2 positions because we have a responsibility to investigate claims of public corruption. It is our responsibility and role to do that, and we have a responsibility to do that, investigate these matters thoroughly, and for public integrity, to instill confidence in what we do and what the community people do and what the elected officials do. We do not have enough staffing at this time to adequately investigate these type of cases. These are different types of cases than investigators normally investigate. It's not follow-up, it's original investigation. And we don't have adequate staffing in order to do that at this time. So I am on board with Ms. Green's request, and I am here to answer any questions that you may have, but we would like to add or ask for the creation of these 2 additional spots in our Public Integrity Unit for investigators.
Thank you, Ms. Zimmer,
Thank you.
for bringing your concern forward. Any
questions?
Any questions for her at this point? Supervisor Gleason.
Sidney, thanks for coming up. A couple questions for you. Why can't you shift funds from one part of your department to another part to satisfy this requirement?
We are not adequately staffed in the investigative bureau to begin with. We have a number of very, very serious cases. We had a record year of homicides last year. We just don't have enough to go around. If you look at how many investigators we have per attorney, we're one of the highest or lowest, however, which way you want to look at it. We have 4 investigators for every, 4 attorneys share 1 investigator, and that's not a very good percentage. Many of those investigators are assigned to units that are grant funded, and we have about 5 or 6 investigators that deal with a majority of serious felony cases. So we just don't have the resources to shift. We don't have personnel to shift into those positions. And we are behind in investigating these cases.
So your ask is for 2 persons to augment or to build up a public integrity unit where you already have 1 investigator. I don't know if investigator is the right word, but you're asking for 2 to augment that person. And could you do it with 1?
We could do it better with 2.
But could you do it with 1?
Well, we could do better with 1. But 2, I think, would be a better for us to be able to do what we do.
Can you give me some numbers? Can you quantify that? How many cases do you have that are outstanding now that you're not answering the mail to? I mean, you're not responding to?
There are cases that are, sometimes they're time sensitive and sometimes they're not. And some of these cases regarding public corruption, we really think that we are doing a disservice to the community by not getting a quick answer. Some of these cases languish, and some of them we're not able to get beyond the statute of limitations.
How many?
As far as how many, I think, let me consult, if I could have just a minute on the screen. I'm going to ask Ms. Green to speak to more of the statistical aspects of this because her investigators have reported to her.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Supervisor Gleason, through the chair, there are 120 election fraud cases that are not investigated at current. That doesn't account for however many complaints we got in from the June 18 election. 120 that are just sitting there. Besides the election fraud, which is covered by our public integrity unit, I would estimate that we have half a dozen cases, half a dozen complaints that have been made on public integrity issues that are basically not being investigated at this point in time because we do not have the staff. As I indicated when I was here in July, so these cases are complex, as DA-elect Zimmer said, but a recent public integrity case required us to take our public integrity investigator plus another investigator pool to accomplish a 4-month-long investigation. We do not have the staff to handle these cases because they are so complex. We're winding up a case right now, which I can't discuss, that we've had 2 investigators working on. It's a year-long investigation.
So how many people work in your public integrity division?
One. You were correct. One investigator. And if he needs help or she needs help, they pull from our bureau. We only, as Ms. Zimmer indicated, we only have 19 investigators. 5 of them are
Total investigators.
Yes, 3 of them are 23 total. 23 total. 3 are off on certain issues right now.
So the reason you're asking, I'm just trying to nail down, you're asking for 2 additional to augment your 1 to bring you to a total of 3.
Yes, sir.
Why are you not asking for 3? Or why are you not asking for 1? Why is it the number 2?
In consultation with the chief of my Bureau of Investigations in terms of what is needed to accomplish the investigations and to handle the volume, that is what I'm being told would accomplish that. Honestly, if we could get 1 more plus a lieutenant, we could have a complete unit investigating officer-involved shootings. Right now, we're handling the reviews of those, but we don't investigate those. I mean, I could go on and on about those types of cases that we're not handling, but I think would be in the best interest of every law enforcement agency in this county to have my office handle those.
I'm very interested in satisfying your request. I recognize the need of what you're talking to, but I don't want to make a recommendation to the CAO to hire 2 unless if 1 could do the job, or if you need 3. You need whatever you need to do this job thoroughly. I'm interested in pursuing, and the reason I'm interested in pursuing this is because I think I said this before, but this strikes at the very core of who we are and what we do. I know I have issues in my district that need to be looked at, need to be managed, whether it's Ridgecrest, the KRV, or whether it was Delano before when I was up in Delano. And I'm not saying these are integrity issues so much, because I don't know, but they could be issues that if they're properly managed early, then they don't blow up into something that casts a shadow over the integrity of the entire organization, whether that's up in Ridgecrest, KIV, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's critical. It strikes to the core of who we are, what we are. You know, you look at government today across the spectrum, and I don't mean to say things, but you know, the Catholic Church today is inundated with this type of stuff. If they had this type of capability early, perhaps this could have been resolved earlier. I'm not comparing us to that. I'm just saying that public integrity across the spectrum is something we cannot function without, period. So if we don't have enough to satisfy our needs, not our wants, but our needs, then we're not doing this a fair job in this. And I would support your needs if your needs need to be met, and I'll make a motion that, but I need to know exactly what your needs are.
Well, I believe I mentioned when I was here in July that we've just been going along. We'll start an investigation, and then we'll have to stop it, or we'll get on the cusp of starting it. The Mountain Meadows case is a good example. That referral, I believe, came into us between 1 and 2 years ago. It sat for 1 year because we did not have the personnel to handle it, because the public integrity investigator was handling something else that was considered to be more pressing, and that's what we're seeing. I'm not sure if you're looking for statistics or what you're looking for, but I can only tell you that in my evaluation of the numbers of these cases and the complexity of these cases, that we can do a better job. We can handle the volume of cases that is coming into this office, into the district attorney's office, with 2 investigators. I suppose I would answer the question just slightly differently than DA-elect Zimmer, although I give her a lot of credit for that. I mean, if the board is only willing to give the office 1, then we'll take 1. But 2 would really get the job done, because there is a volume of these cases. And I believe I did present numbers in terms of how many we've handled. I think the number I gave you in July was 87 over the last 5 years. That's approximately 7 cases a year that 1 investigator is handling. And you know, that's a lot.
Good, thank you very much. I'm ready to make a motion, but before I do, I'd like to hear from other board members.
Thank you. Supervisor Couch.
Just a quick question on how they might function. You're asking for 2 investigators for the public integrity unit. let's assume for a second, which this would probably never happen, but you run through all your outstanding cases, you either close them or you prosecute them, and everyone in Kern County who's a public official cleans up their act. Can those folks move and work on investigations in other areas at that point, or are they sort of pigeonholed into that job?
Supervisor Couch, through the chair, no, they're not pigeonholed.
Okay.
They wouldn't sit idle. I have.
They're an investigator,
Yes.
as the others are.
They're peace officers, yes. They're just assigned, like we have welfare fraud investigators. They would be, they're public integrity investigators. But it isn't our intention, if that's a concern, to try to move them to bolster investigations in the criminal division. This is a need of the
No, I
district
think
attorney's
that's
office.
smart, if you can do that. So if were you making a motion or considering making a motion to the budget file, or to have the CAO bring something back?
Yeah,
Please respond, Supervisor.
Yes, I would like to make a motion to have the CAO accommodate the district attorney to a number so that we can satisfy her need to maintain public integrity in Kern County.
And that is that up to and including two investigators?
Up to and including 2.
Thank you.
And that's a motion. And if they negotiate and it comes to 1, that's fine. But I need to have that happen. I need to have this studied. That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Do we have a second to that motion? Mr. Alsop, would you like to respond?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that Mr. Chairman, that we're clear on what the motion is, and I wanted to also point out that I've had discussions with the district attorney and her office, and if your board wishes to accommodate adding an additional 2 investigator positions, you can certainly do that. What we're not recommending is providing any more funding to the district attorney's budget. Our office will work closely with her office to find funding within her existing budget to put toward those 2 new additional positions that you'd authorize, and we could do a report back to your board at some point, say mid-year, January, on the sustainability of those 2 positions and the funding available for them. So just to emphasize that this is a motion that would be to add positions.
Thank you.
Only.
Anybody else want to speak?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, that's what I wanted to make sure that we were clarifying, is that I'm in support of us exploring and potentially approving the addition of 2 positions for this need that the district attorney's identified. But I'm not in support of providing additional funding to the department. There's one department that we've held harmless in this budget, particularly, and that is the Sheriff's Department. And I think that has been because of their critical situation that they're in when it comes to staffing, retention, recruitment. Additional cuts to that department, I think, would not be something that I feel would be appropriate, nor would I go along with it. But in this case, I think that the CAO has made an argument in a case that there is funding available for these 2 positions. So I want to make sure that I'm being clear that I support the creation, most likely, of these 2 positions, but not additional funding.
Supervisor Gleason, you want to say something?
Well, I don't understand how she's supposed to do this job, satisfy this requirement, if we don't give her the billet and the funding in order to have that function done. How do we do it if there's no funding to the billet?
Supervisor Gleason, Mr. Chairman, we believe they have the money. And we don't believe, we know they have the money. This is a discussion that we've had with their business team and the district attorney herself, and there is money available. This is post, I can't remember the date, but it was a couple of weeks ago, post that presentation. We've had subsequent conversations, and I believe worked on a compromise, which is for your board to add these positions, and for our staff to help them find ways to fund them in the existing budget. We believe that's possible.
Okay. We're at loggerheads on this one because I want this job done, and I want her to do it, and I know she's going to say I don't have the money.
Well,
can you talk?
I can speak to that. There's, from my perspective, 2 ways to fund these positions. We have budget savings incentives, BSI, in the department, which is what I've spoken with Mr. Alsop about, funding those positions. That's a temporary fix, obviously, because we don't have unlimited BSI. The CAO's office has indicated that they would permit us to use the BSI, and then I think that's what he was speaking to, that next year at some point Ms. Zimmer could report to the board as to the sustainability of the positions.
Okay.
So that is an option. The other option is funding it. That may not be a sustainable option. The other option, which is completely sustainable, obviously, is funding it from the general fund. And so that's what I had spoken with Mr. Alsop about the BSI.
Okay, so my motion is going to be, I think what we all here agreed on, and we'll see what we can do down the road with negotiations in terms of actually not just creating the billet, which we're trying to do today, but funding the billet through whatever means we have available at the time.
I'd like to speak about that for
Go
a second,
for it.
if you don't mind. I think it's clear that four of us want there to be 2 additional investigators in the district attorney's office to make sure that the public's trust is affirmed and guaranteed, because that's central to what we do. So 4 of us agree there should be 2 more positions in that investigation unit. So my concern, my direction to the CAO is, I want there to be no equivocation. I want there to be no question about the fact that when we approve a budget, when next we meet, which will likely be next Tuesday, at the end of that discussion, I want the public to know that we have provided at that time for 2 additional investigators. If that needs to be done with funding, then it needs to be done with funding. If you have worked out a way between you to do that so that those 2 positions are guaranteed after we've approved that budget next week, I'm okay with that. But I think what's important is that when this budget cycle is concluded, we have provided for adequate staffing in the Public Integrity Unit to make sure that the public trusts the decisions made throughout all levels of government in Kern County. So that's my perspective on that. Does County Council have a comment to make?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. My understanding is that this matter is not on the agenda for today, and as such, all you really should do is to make a referral, and you're not able to vote to approve the positions or the funding on today.
I appreciate you telling us that, and it's I understood that the motion was to refer to the budget file to augment the budget as is presented to us when next we meet to provide for these positions. Is that what that's what his motion was? Okay. Any other discussion about that?
Kick that dead horse enough.
We had a motion and a second to refer to the budget file for the inclusion of those positions in our budget discussions next week. Any other question? Any questions from the public about that item? Please cast your votes if you're in favor of that motion.
The motion is approved, 4 ayes, 1 absent. Supervisor Perez.
Thank you very much. Okay, are there any other members of the public who would like to speak to us this morning about a matter that that's not otherwise on our agenda?
Yes, sir. Tim Coffrin, Kern Law Enforcement Association again. I'd like to request an opportunity to respond to the CEO's comments regarding the initial offer made to KLA, if that's possible.
We've had a long discussion about this morning, and you very effectively communicated your message. He responded. When is it next that we will meet for our negotiations? Monday? Are you going to be in attendance on Monday, that negotiation?
Yes, I will.
Okay. We'll give you a moment now then to respond.
Okay. Thank you for allowing me to come back up here. I think the characterization of the initial offer was fairly accurate by Mr. Alsop. However, what wasn't discussed is the fact that to pay those retention bonuses, there was going to be the certificate pays removed from deputy sheriff's salaries, which would in fact lower their per hour rate that they get paid. We worked through some of those issues, and at the end of the day, we made it to where it didn't affect any of our current members, but it would affect our new members coming on. And in essence, what that was going to do was lower their per hour salary. So any overtime that they worked would be at a much lower rate, up to close to $7 an hour. Also, what isn't discussed is those retention bonuses. Once we did some education process at the table, once it was determined that those were going to be pensionable, it's KLA's understanding that those retention bonuses were removed from the offer, and so there was not that offer to be made to our membership. Following that process, we went back to the table and we crafted the offer based on the amount of money that the county thought they had to work with, and we came up with an offer that we could evenly distribute that to our membership, and that's where we landed, and that was the offer that was made.
Thank you for your comments, Mr. Coffrin. I respect you. We all respect you, and thank you for the job that you do, and we respect all the people that you represent. What is very important is that a complete understanding of what we are trying to do to retain and compensate these employees that we so heavily value. We want to make sure that's communicated effectively. So I implore you to please work with the CAO's office to make sure that your members that you represent understand our effort to try to provide for them a package that will provide all of the incentives and rewards that they need, because we tremendously value them. So I hope that you guys can work that out so that that can be communicated effectively. And I'm sorry that so many members left and did not wait to hear that explanation, but please help us in communicating that, because our bottom line is we want our deputies to be compensated effectively and rewarded for the work they do, and to know that they are appreciated. So that clearly was not the impression that the deputies had this morning, at least as I took their comments.
Thank you, and we've been doing our best to communicate that to them. You can understand the logistics of trying to do that, but I assure the CEO that we will come back to the table and we will work diligently to come up with something. The first time we were there with them, both teams worked excellent together. I think we have a good rapport with each other, and I think the opportunity is there for us to, at the end of the day, come up with something that's going to work for both parties.
I hope that can be done. Thank you, sir. Anybody else want to talk to us about any other matter that's not otherwise on our agenda this morning?
Oh, yes. Mr. Chairman,
hold on just a second. Did you?
Yes.
It's related to, Chairman Maggard, it's
Okay.
related to Supervisor Gleason's had a question.
Thank you. Could you please?
Please.
Thanks, Chairman. Could you please explain to us the law that was passed or what happened yesterday in Sacramento with regards to bail?
Yes, just briefly, Supervisor Gleason through the chair, there's a new bill to change bail drastically in the state of California. It passed the Assembly. It's now with the California Senate. And it could have actually great consequences for every county, and our county included, in terms of financial consequences. Cash bail is essentially going to be a thing of the past. So the amended version that is now in the Senate allows for judges to have some discretion as to which felons to keep behind bars, but to deny bail. But there's a limited amount of funding. I don't know what that will be, but it's going to the court. And the court will be directing that down to whatever county department, which in this case, having spoken with Mr. Miracle, the probation chief, probation is going to incur a lot of additional costs because they're going to be asked to make pre-trial assessments on public safety of these individuals. My office is going to have additional costs because personnel are going to have to appear at many, many more bail hearings, file many more documents, and so I think the consequences of this new bill are going to be particularly difficult and wide-ranging for our county and for the probation department and probably the DA's office.
Thank you for that explanation. Any other questions? Okay, that concludes our public comment portion of our meeting, and it is now appropriate for us to adjourn to closed session. We have numerous items to take up, and we will reconvene here at 2 o'clock this afternoon. Is there a motion to adjourn to closed? We have a motion by Supervisor Gleason, so without objection, so ordered.